because I would really like to have this conversation with you, this speaking exercise. So that's totally fine. Perfect. So we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. What do you understand by self sabotage?
Um, I understand for self-sabotage. There is something we have in our head.
Hmm.
Basically, a simple words that we say to ourselves, like we don't be capable to get that job. I don't have a strong enough. I can try to improve my English. That kind of things in our head, I think is a self sabotage to ourselves to try to be better in our daily days.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You know, you gave a very detailed description of it that keeps you stuck in the same place, even when you want to move forward. And this can happen in different areas of life, such as work, relationship, or personal growth, right? It is something that happens on a daily basis and in every single aspect of our lives, right? I think everyone, to some
Mm.
degree, have self sabotage, right? We have sabotage ourselves to some degree, correct?
Sometimes I have self sabotage, but
We all do.
I think I am a little more stronger than that thought that I have in my
Hmm.
head. So basically, I say I had to do something
Hmm.
to change it. Um, and I am starting that routine that I told him before about having a positive thought. I
Hmm.
started to say positive ideas that I am a successful person. I'm trying to starting think that. So I am to try to be in a to make any in a for example a picture of me doing that thing that I want to do. And I think it's a good tool, a good way to try to take away that self sabotage to
Yes,
ourselves.
definitely. Visualizing yourself
Mm-hmm.
accomplishing whatever you want to accomplish. It's actually the opposite of self sabotage, right? Like you're envisioning yourself, you're putting yourself in this mental position where you're actually accomplishing whatever you desire, whatever you want to. So it's pretty good. That's a very good mechanism. Why do you think we self sabotage? Why? What's the reason behind it?
¿Por qué creo que hacemos sabotaje nosotros mismos?
Yeah, like why? Why do we sabotage ourselves? Why do you think
Mm,
it happens?
I think that happened basically for something that uh, we can get it.
Hmm.
That is the word. For example, if I want to try to eat a much better, more healthy, for example,
Yeah.
um, in the or for example, if I want to go to the gym to make my workout every day,
Hmm.
so in the first thought that I have in my head is for example, oh no, I don't have a the choose to
Yeah.
make that workout. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. But you don't need that choose to make the workout.
Hmm.
You don't need the money to go to a gym because you can make you work out on your house.
Yes. Yes.
And
You
for
don't even
example,
have to
in
go to the
Cuba,
gym to work out, right?
yes,
Yeah.
you can starting to walk around the your neighborhood, for example, 30 minutes, and that is a workout.
Yes.
So basically, I think it's a barriers,
It's a barrier.
a
Hmm.
negative idea that we made in a that we make in our head, in our
Right.
thought.
Right. It is definitely a negative idea. The question is, why do you think we have this natural instinct to create that negative idea first? Do you think is because we think we are not going to experience pleasure anymore? Do you think it's because of lack of self-esteem? Why do you think that when we say something like, I want to go to the gym, we automatically activate a mechanism of like, we don't have shoes, like you don't have money, you're too busy, remember you need to do this. Why? Why do you think the first thing we do is to activate this negative thought?
I think that is something who comes with the human being we are,
Mm,
that we are.
okay.
The second thing that you say in the beginning, that your sentences, no entendí, que creo que lo que debe ser.
Yeah,
Eh,
like why, like it's the first reaction, this negative thought, you know? Like why do you think it happens? You said it's in human nature. According to specialists, yeah, which is kind of true. According to specialists, this is what it says. It says most of the time self-sabotage comes from fear of failure. You see? Fear of failure.
failure es fallar.
Fracaso. Temor al fracaso, fear of failure, right?
Oh,
Fear of success, fear of change. It's also connected to low self esteem in certain scenarios. And sometimes it also has to do with limiting beliefs. And if you don't believe you deserve happiness or success, you may subconsciously create obstacles for yourself. And that's why internal narratives and beliefs are absolutely important, right? They are going to dictate your thoughts, your images, and by extension, your feelings, your actions, and your results. These results are going to create a reality. And that reality, since now everything is real, since now you have a result, is going to create more beliefs and more self narratives, right? But it's interesting to see that if you really go deeper when it comes to self sabotage, it's really about fear of failure. So if I'm going to fail, I'm not even going to try. That makes a lot of sense. Fear of success. Some
yes.
people are not ready for success. It's very interesting. And fear of change. We know that we as human beings, we don't like change. We don't like it. We are so attached to the current conditions that we have been able to accomplish that we don't want to let them go. We don't want to. So the change is like a potential threat of taking away whatever you have accomplished. And of course, self esteem. And this is why it's very important to, like, if you're a parent, to be able to have this reinforcement, these words of love and validation to your kids. We talked about that in the previous class. The first years of our lives are absolutely important, not only for the way we see the world, but also to establish this belief system to create a solid self-esteem. Now, can you give me more examples of self-sabotage?
Uh,
Like how do we
More
manifest?
example.
In what type of actions? What type of actions are an indication of self-sabotage, in your opinion? Well, let me give you an example. I think procrastination, procrastination is a way to self-sabotage yourself. You know what procrastination is?
Yes,
Procrastination,
I know.
right? We all have done it,
Yeah, I know.
right?
Huh?
We all have done it. So I think procrastination is a very clear way to sabotage yourself. You need to do something
I
important. You
think
know you
every
have to do it, and you don't do it.
Mhm. I think everything in their lives, uh they are making procrastination.
Hmm.
For me, it's a mechanism
Mechanism,
that mechanism. Ay, Dios, está difícil.
mechanism, like
¿Cómo?
ism, ism,
Mechanism.
mechanism. Hmm.
Mechanism. Like the person try to postpone the that situation or that thing that I had to do, because they do not believe in who is capable to do.
Yeah, I agree
And that is the
100%.
difference between a person, between a successful person and a normal person.
Yeah, it has to do with whatever you say to yourself. If you say to yourself that you can do it, that you got this, that you're very smart, uh, you're most likely not going to procrastinate, right? That's a way to self
Hmm.
sabotage, to sabotage yourself. Another very good example would be when someone avoids a healthy relationship because they think they will eventually get hurt. Have you ever seen a person like that? Like they are so fearful, they're so scared
My
of.
best friend, my best friend, my
Okay.
best friend is like a second example.
Hmm. Right. So this is
But
a.
the problem with her was because the parents, their
Mhm.
parents, they broke up when she had a, I think, 5 years old.
When she
So
was five.
basically,
Hmm.
when she was 5 years old, so basically they make an negative influence of her about the
Yes.
relationship when she grew up. So every time she tried to to avoid the marriage, basically
Because she
right
has
now
this
she don't
perception that
have
the same is
a
going to happen, that
boyfriend.
she's going to repeat the same pattern. Hmm.
She don't have a boyfriend, and she has 32 years old.
She is. She is 32 years old. Yeah.
She's 32 years old.
Yeah. Well, it's okay not to have a boyfriend, but you got to do it with the valid reasons, right? Like if your reason is fear, I have this perception fear, to make decisions based on fear.
Hmm.
I don't think they're good decisions, you know? Like if you don't do something because you believe that something bad is going to happen, and because of that you're not going to give yourself the opportunity to be happy, I think that's a very bad decision, you know. But now that you're mentioning the context, which was an experience that happened during her childhood, she has very valid reasons to feel that way. You see, and that's what I'm saying. That's why childhood is very important. That's why when you go to therapy or when you visit the psychologist, one of the first questions they are going to ask you is tell me about your childhood, right? Like psychologists know that most of a big portion of our behavior is based on, traumas or beliefs or preconceived notions that we adopted during our childhood. Let's take a look at the third one. This one is very interesting because it's very subtle, Rosie. It says perfectionism. Who would have thought, right? That's another way to self sabotage yourself. Perfectionism. You want to have everything perfect before starting, and nothing is perfect in this life. Nothing is perfect. So being perfectionist, is a way to self sabotage yourself. You mentioned the number four, negative self talk, right? Most of the
Yes.
time, we're having this conversation with ourselves throughout the day. If we are on the train, if
Mhm.
we're driving, if we're working, if we are at the gym, when we're working, when we're about to sleep, most of the time, we're having this conversation, this internal conversation, most of the time. So self sabotage happens when you're having a negative conversation, and it's very easy to have this negative conversation.
It's
Avoiding
very easy.
responsibility, yeah, it's very easy to engage, and the reason why there's a reason for that. Our brain is designed to keep us alive. Okay, like one of the main functions of your brain is that you survive. Okay, so the main responsibility of your brain is to keep you alive. In order to keep you alive, it has to visualize potential threats. So it's always looking for a threat, a potential danger in your environment, and that translates into a negative image. right? That's why you're always having these negative outcomes, because the main function of your brain is to keep you alive. So it's very easy, because of that natural setup that we have in our brain. It's very easy to have this negative self-talk. You cannot do it, you're not good enough, that's very dangerous, I don't think it's going to happen. All those negative thoughts that prevent you to reach your goals. Let's take a look at the other one: avoiding responsibility. Avoiding responsibility is another way to self-sabotage, right? um, what would be like a way to avoid responsibility? I think when we play the victim, I think it's a way to sabotage ourselves, because when you play the victim, what you're saying is that you are at the mercy of events, Rosie, and I think that's a very dangerous thought to
Mhm.
have. Wouldn't you agree?
Avoiding responsibility. I'm agree. Avoiding responsibilities. I was thinking about me
Mm-hmm.
the last week because I was avoiding a difficult talk with my political family
Mm-hmm.
who lives here, my husband family, because I had a problem with him for something that I did wrong that include them in that situation. So
Mm-hmm.
in the last week, I'm trying to avoid that conversation with them, but we had to did it.
We
We
had to
had
do it.
to
Yeah, we had to do it.
we had to do it.
Yeah,
So basically, I did it, but um, it was me tomó.
it took me.
It took me a little time,
Right.
but it was a stressful thing for me because all the time
Mm-hmm.
in my head, uh, um, I make a self sabotage. It was an awkward situation with them.
And that's why we have to learn, even with our loved ones, we have to learn what conversations might develop a negative outcome. I know that with certain friends, that are topics that if I talk about them and if I'm not aligned with their perspective, I know I'm going to touch a nerve, and that might create, that might be perceived as inflammatory or provocative, and we might have certain friction, so there are certain topics that you prefer not to have. I remember I had a professor at the university, and remember he would always say politics, money, and religion, are topics that you try not to
Oh,
talk on the dining
ah,
table.
yes.
On the dining
Gosh,
table. Yes. And he would say the
it never
dining table.
ends.
It never ends. Everybody has a different perspective, since they are ideas that are very enrooted in you. When you try to contrast those ideas, is as the person feels as if you are attacking their identity directly. Because if you think
Hmm.
about it, religion is your whole perspective about creation, about God, about the natural order of things. So when you're contrasting that, you're pretty much attacking a good portion of that person's identity. and
You
and
know
I,
something? In my case, who came from Cuba, every time that I am post a video or something about my process like an immigrant,
Mhm.
even when I even talk about Cuba, there is a person who appears in that comment
Wow.
who was talking about, no, you in Cuba has you don't have these opportunities, and oh my goodness, I'm not even talking about Cuba in this video, in this post. I'm talking
Wow.
about United States or something different. So basically, it is a topic that never ends because I am from Cuba.
Hmm. Yeah.
So oh my goodness, change your chip and move on another situation.
Yeah. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think there is a natural instinct to have a political opinion every time someone mentions Cuba? Have you ever thought about that? Why is it so
Because for
provocative?
because the only mention that the Cuba, like a country, is a toxic, polemic word
Mhm.
for peoples. So everybody who knows about happened in Cuba want to talk about their point of view about the situation in Cuba.
Yes.
So in that time, everybody is a lawyer, is a juez. ¿Cómo se dice juez?
Judge. A judge.
Everybody is a judge, and everybody is has the capacity to talk something about the situation.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was
I,
crazy.
I think that's what it is. I think what you're saying is the reason why everybody wants to have a position about Cuba, a political opinion about Cuba, is because justice and freedom are very important topics for human beings. And whenever you see a lack of justice or a lack of freedom, people tend to react. The problem is that everybody has their own perception about what is justice and what is freedom, right? Those are very broad concepts, and that's why everybody tend to have an opinion about Cuba. It's very interesting, this Cuba thing. I've never thought about it. Everybody wants to talk about it,
And
right?
it's a funny thing because my last video on my YouTube channel, it was about five things that we thought before we are an immigrant in the United States. Like the people, everybody thought about you are going to become a rich person
Hmm.
in a month. You have a lot of money. The English is not necessary in the country, and you know that video was crazy on the comments. Was crazy. The people, no, no, no. Something sometimes made me stressed about the person, but I'm not gonna change the
Yeah,
the the
the
the thought
content.
for
Yeah,
the content.
absolutely. Okay. Let's continue with um this conversation of self-sabotage. I have a list here. You can
Hmm.
see my screen. It says procrastination, where someone is trying to have a healthy relationship, but they think they will eventually get hurt, or they have perfectionism, they have negative self talk, avoiding responsibility, and self doubt. In your case, in your personal life or professional life, which one have you done? Like, do you see yourself, do you recognize yourself doing one of these things in your
Yes,
everyday
I
life?
recognize me.
Which one?
Hmm. Procrastination is the first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, it's the first one.
Yeah, for me it's the first one too, and I have noticed that I tend to procrastinate when I am not 100% familiar with the task, or I don't know the outcome of the task. Like, I don't know how things are going to happen. So since I don't know, I'm like, oh, let me do this, first, because this is more important. And I need to do this. And oh, this happened. I need to take care of this right now because this is urgent. And those are, like, quote unquote, the valid reasons I'm giving to myself to avoid that task. When the truth of the matter is fear. What's really going on is fear. And the same happens with perfectionism. Like, sometimes I remember, I having this conversation with a friend. Like, this guy was very, very smart, very intelligent guy, and I was telling him, you should have your YouTube channel. You should have your YouTube channel.
Hmm.
You're a brilliant person, and you should be a content creator. And he really loved this idea, and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. 2 months after, I talked to him
Hmm.
again, and I asked him, what happened with your YouTube channel? Oh, I'm waiting for my microphone. I'm waiting for a high
Right.
quality camera. I'm waiting for my lights. I need to save money first. And in my mind, I was, if you really want to create content, you can go to your backyard with your cell phone. Maybe you can buy this $25 microphone that you can get in any store, and you can start creating content. And then he was like, oh, I also need to learn editing. He was finding these valid reasons in order for him not to do it. And again, it's not that he's a bad person. That's a very natural thing to do. When we are afraid, when we have uncertainty, when we don't know what's going to happen, or when we visualize a negative outcome, we tend to give these valid reasons. You know, it's fear of
Mm-hmm.
failure if you think about it. It's definitely fear of failure, right? So we all have done it, or avoiding responsibility. It's very easy to victimize yourself. It's very easy to say, it's not my fault. This government, this economy, this capitalist system, this neighborhood, oh my goodness. To put yourself in a position where you are at the mercy of events. I think it's so easy to do that, you know, instead of proactively asking yourself, what can I do about this situation? We have to understand that life is not what happened to you, but how you respond to whatever is happening. And there's a difference between reacting and responding, right? Reacting is emotional, responding is, wait a second, let me think about this. Why is this happening? And what can I do about it? That's responding. That's actually the definition of responsibility. I really like this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey talks about responsibility. Responsibility is the combination of two words, ability and response. Is your ability to respond to events, right? And he explains the difference between reacting, and responding. And he said, when you actually respond to life, you're more accountable, you're more responsible, you're more proactive, you're more empathetic. You analyze your environment in a better way, and that makes you being a more proactive person. And again, that's hard. That's hard. That's why people prefer to victimize and criticize, because it's easier. It's easier to victimize yourself. It's easier to say to the world, this bad situation that is happening to me right now is not my fault. I'm at the mercy of events, right? It's so
Mm-hmm.
easy. So we all have done it, but I think it's very toxic. I think it's very, very toxic.
Recuerda suscribirte a nuestro canal y activar las notificaciones para estar al tanto de todo nuestro contenido. De igual forma, recuerda dejar en los comentarios cualquier tema o aspecto del idioma inglés que te gustaría que abordáramos en nuestros siguientes videos.